Okay, hello everyone. I'm Kate. I wrote a book called The Storyteller, which was published by Holland House on the 2nd of June 2016. It's going to be coming out in the US on the 20th of April 2017. And I have been intending for about the last year to do a video blog every so often. It was my resolution to do one before the end of 2016. I failed. I'm 2 days late. But I thought I would at least have a go, and the first one will be terrible and then they may improve after that. So I write, I guess, what you would call literary fiction. It's certainly not genre fiction. The Storyteller was described by one of my readers, I thought in a brilliant way, as Anita Bruckner on acid. So if you like Hotel du Lac and acid, then come try The Storyteller. It's a book about, it's a coming of age story about depression and insanity and lack of emotional connection. And it's actually on the shortlist currently for a prize called the Republic of Consciousness Prize for Small Presses, which is having its shortlist announcement in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm very much excited about that. I write novels. My second novel I'm in the process of writing at the moment, but I read novels at a rate of about probably currently 150 for every one that I write. So I thought I would wave at you today some of the novels that I have on my reading list, or some of the novels and non-fiction related to literature that I have on my reading list, which were kindly given to me as Christmas presents from various people. So top of the list is a book which I received for Christmas, finished reading over Christmas, and you probably can't see it terribly well on the screen there. It's shiny on the front, it's got gold lines all the way down the front. It's Mike McCormack's Solar Bones, which won the Goldsmiths Prize for 2016. That was announced just before Christmas. It is a book about a man who is an engineer living on the west coast of Ireland. The book is told in a single sentence, running all the way through from start to finish, so no chapter breaks, no anything, although it is broken into paragraphs. And it's effectively a stream of consciousness of this man who, as the blurb tells you, so I'm not giving you a spoiler, is dead, but has returned to the world on All Souls Day and is sitting at his kitchen table, and these are the thoughts which are running through his head. It's a very, very interesting book. I found as I was reading it that I began to replicate the style in what I was writing, to quite a great extent actually. I went back to my writing the next day and discovered it was much more like Mike McCormack than I had intended it to be. So I think this is a fascinating book from a literary point of view, and I also found it entertaining to read. So that's Mike McCormack's Solar Bones. The next thing that I have on my list from Christmas is Eimear McBride's The Lesser Bohemians. This was also on the shortlist for the Goldsmiths Prize. You're going to see a theme here. I'm interested in the Goldsmiths Prize because it actively looks for innovative literary fiction that is interesting in some way. So it's not replicating stuff that's already been done. And what I want to do with my writing is something which is new, and ideally new and different in every next thing I write, not writing the same thing repeatedly. So the Goldsmiths Prize is a bit of a source for me in terms of seeing what other people are doing in that vein. So I haven't yet read Eimear McBride's first novel, A Girl is a Half-Formed Thing. That's also on my list for the next couple of weeks. But I now also have The Lesser Bohemian. So I'll be fascinated to see number one, what she did in her first novel, but then how she did that differently, or something related differently second time round. I heard all of the Goldsmiths shortlisted writers speak at a reading that they did at Goldsmiths before Christmas, and McBride read this with so much life that I am really quite excited to see how it comes across on the page. So number 2 will be The Lesser Bohemians for the next few weeks, or for this month. Continuing the theme of the Goldsmith shortlist. I also have Deborah Levy's Hot Milk, which was also shortlisted for the Booker. This one, again, I haven't read Levy's earlier novel, not first novel, Swimming Home, which won the Booker, I think, a few years ago. This is, I am looking forward to. Of all the writers I heard speak at this Goldsmiths reading, Levy was the one I found most interesting on what it is like to write and what it's like to make decisions about what the next thing is that you put on the page. So when to follow the crazy idea, when to follow the critical instinct that actually this is not the next right thing for this novel. So I'll be fascinated, having heard Levy talking about that, which for some reason is always better than hearing people reading about it, hearing people writing about it, is to read Hot Milk. I also have, still from the Goldsmith shortlist, I have Rachel Cusk's Transit, which I started today. I've spent 3.5 hours today on a train down from North Wales to London at the end of my holiday, and I started Transit on the train. I was really getting into the voice, actually. It's quite... I mean, it says in the blurb that the narrator is very intelligent, which I have to say is not always something that works. A narrator who spends too much time thinking about what's going on often, to my mind, can result in quite a abstract story. I'm not going to say slow, because slow stories are good, often good, but quite an abstract story. I quite like, in general, to have something a little more active going on rather than intellectualization. So I'm getting into this more slowly than some things I've read recently. But the voice is yes, quite reflective and quite distanced from the reader. She doesn't give you everything all at once. I'll be very interested to see where this novel goes next. I've just read a chapter in which something very surprising and quite violent happened. I'll be very interested to see where the novel goes next and what it does with this rather impersonal, rather reflective, highly intelligent narrative voice. So that is what I'm in the middle of at the moment. I also came across. I also have a couple of pieces of writing about writing. I have Elena Ferrante's Frantumalia, which I actually bought in Italian when I was in Florence last year. I completely failed to read. My Italian's not very good, but it wasn't available in English at the time. And I've been putting off buying it in English because having it already in Italian seemed a bit of a waste. But I had the opportunity to ask for it as a Christmas present, and it is a wonderful thing to have as a Christmas present, and I need not feel guilty about having bought it myself. So that, I think, I will be dipping into extensively. Ferrante, I found interesting. I started by reading the Neapolitan saga, so started with My Brilliant Friend, which I think a lot of people do, and I didn't fall for it, despite a lot of people having told me that they'd loved the 4 books in that series. But I really did fall for her shorter, I think earlier novellas almost, which are quite cruel, quite twisted, have quite dark themes. They're strange books about a lot of dark female interior experience, metaphorically, not literally. And I loved those, and that's also something that if you've seen or read The Storyteller, you'll realise that I'm very interested in. So there's a lot of madness and near madness in Ferrante's shorter works, which I like very much, and it fits with what I try to write. So I shall be dipping into Ferrante. And then the final book I got on my Christmas list is Toby Lips' Lifelike. I hadn't heard of Toby Lips, which I now feel really embarrassed about. He is a creative writing teacher at Birkbeck. He was one of Granta's, he was on the Granta Best Young Novelists list at some point about 10 years ago. I'm just blinking because my contact lenses are very dry. And I found him through his writing about writing called Mutants, which is relatively recently published. And contains some of the most incisive, interesting, sophisticated writing about writing, which I have read in a very long time. I read a lot of books about writing. Most of them I read as sort of gentle bedtime reading, don't require much concentration. I read them a little bit the way I read magazines. It's sort of keeping my brain occupied at the end of a tired day. Lips' Mutants were an utterly different experience. I found myself thinking about them in quite a lot of detail, and I keep going back and back to those articles. So I then went and looked at what else he's written. He has written a large number of books of various sorts, fiction, non-fiction, short stories, all relatively innovative in style and ambition, which again, as I said about the Goldsmiths list, is something that I'm interested in, A, in doing, and B, in seeing what other people are doing in. So yes, Lifelike, this book, is an ambitious collection of short stories. And I will be very interested to see what's in here. Just looking through, there are a whole range of different formats. There are cartoons. There are text messages or Twitter feed or that sort of short pieces. So anyway, I'll be fascinated to see what this is, and I suspect I will be reading an awful lot of what he's writing. I'm also enjoying his blog at the moment. Indeed, I'm considering, not for the first time, going to Birkbeck and doing a creative writing course because of him. I think that might be overkill, but I'm genuinely intellectually interested in what he's doing in a way that I rarely am in when I read blogs about writing, books about writing. So I will be going away and reading this. So that's going to keep me busy for the next few weeks. I'm also, as I said at the beginning, writing my next novel at the moment. I have about getting on for a full draft of that. So my ambition for that is to have a full draft by the end of January, probably. And then there will be some interesting decisions to make about exactly what the tone of the narrator's voice is, whether it has the structure I want it to have, how much to the forefront other characters beyond the main character are, or whether I decide to push them into the background a little bit more. And there are also a couple of sections that I'm conscious currently are weaker than others. So I will be going back to that in a lot more detail. But I've now got to the stage where I'm quite keen, having worked on it really probably for the last 2 years, to get a clean full draft that I can ask a few people to read. The first 30,000 words 2 people now have read and been very positive about, which is exciting because it's a very different book from The Storyteller. I don't want to do the same thing again, but it is coming along. I'm pleased with how it's going. And it's always dangerous to state ambitions out loud, but one of my ambitions for 2017 is to get that to a state where I am pleased with it, excited by it, proud of it. Some days I'll be proud of it, other days I will hate it, but that's fine, that's normal. And then get that into agent and publisher territory, but I need to finish writing it first. So that's me. If you're interested in my book, The Storyteller, it is on Amazon in the UK. It will be on Amazon in the US from the 20th of April. But I am planning to do these videos every month or so to talk a bit about what I'm reading, a bit about how I'm thinking about writing. So if you enjoyed this one, then do come back and have another look in a month or so's time. And I will leave it there.